The afternoon sun dipped low over the park, painting everything in soft gold. The kind of light that makes even the dust in the air shimmer like magic. The park was alive. Children running, laughter echoing, swings creaking rhythmically, and the smell of melting ice cream floating on the breeze. But among all that laughter and noise sat a little girl on a weathered wooden bench completely alone. Her name was Lily. Barely 7 years old, with brown curls framing a pale, thoughtful face. Her small legs swung above the ground, not quite long enough to touch the dirt. She held a tiny daisy between her fingers, twisting it absently as her eyes followed the other children. You could tell she wasn't just watching, she was wishing. Every few seconds, her gaze landed on one pair in particular, a little boy and his dad. They were flying a toy plane together, laughing, their joy so effortless, so whole. The father's laughter was full and unrestrained, the kind that makes a child feel like the safest person in the world. Lily smiled faintly, then the smile disappeared, replaced by something quiet and sad. She looked down at her scuffed shoes and whispered something only the wind could hear. Then she sighed. The kind of sigh that doesn't belong to a child. The kind that comes from missing something you never really had. That's when David appeared. He was in his mid-30s, tall but gentle looking, with that particular exhaustion in his eyes that only single parents carry. A kind of tiredness wrapped in love. In one hand, he carried his son's backpack. In the other, a bright red kite. His son, Ethan, ran a few steps ahead of him, shouting, "Dad, come on, hurry! The wind's perfect." David chuckled, shaking his head. I'm coming. From afar, you could tell he wasn't just a good father. He was the kind of father every child dreams of having. The kind who still found time to smile, even when the world weighed heavy on his shoulders. Lily's eyes followed them with quiet intensity. She watched the way Ethan tugged at his dad's sleeve, how David crouched down to help him fix the kite string, how they laughed like the rest of the world didn't exist. Something in her small chest tightened. She didn't understand why it hurt, only that it did. Minutes passed. The sun slipped a little lower, the shadows stretched long, and then, as if a little spark of courage flickered inside her, Lily stood. In her tiny hand, she held the daisy she'd been twisting, now slightly crumpled but still white and bright. She took a deep breath and walked slowly toward them. David noticed her first. He smiled kindly, lowering the kite reel. "Hey there, sweetheart. You lost?" Lily shook her head, her curls bouncing. "No, I'm not lost." Her voice was soft, but steady. She looked at Ethan for a moment, then back at David. "Your boy's really lucky," she said, her tone matter of fact, but her eyes deep with something unsaid. David blinked, a little surprised. "Thank you," he said, smiling gently. "He's a good kid." Lily nodded, her fingers nervously brushing the daisy's petals. She hesitated, chewing her lip. You could almost see the war inside her, wanting to say something, but afraid to. Finally she looked up, her big brown eyes glistening. "Sir," she whispered, "could you pretend to be my daddy, just for one day?" David froze. Ethan, who had been adjusting his kite, stopped mid-motion. The air around them suddenly felt different, quieter, heavier, as though the world itself had paused to listen. David's mouth opened, but no words came out. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer than before. "Pretend to be your daddy." Lily nodded quickly, afraid he'd say no. "Just for today," she said, her words tumbling out. "Just while I'm here at the park. I won't bother you, I promise. I just want to know what it feels like." Her voice cracked in the middle, just slightly, enough to make David's heart twist. He knelt down so their eyes met. "Where's your dad, sweetheart?" She hesitated. Her gaze fell to the ground. "He left," she whispered. "Mommy says he didn't want to be here anymore." David's chest tightened. He glanced at Ethan, who looked at the girl with wide, curious eyes, innocence trying to understand pain. "I see," David murmured. "That must be really hard." Lily tried to shrug to act brave. "It's okay. I just thought maybe if someone could pretend just once, I could know how it feels. What it's like to have a daddy." David's throat felt dry. He looked at Ethan again. His son gave a small nod, the kind that only kids give when they understand more than they can say. And then David smiled. A slow, gentle smile that reached his tired eyes. "All right," he said softly. "For one day I'll be your dad. Lily's mouth fell open slightly. Her eyes widened, filling with light. Really? David said. But if I'm your dad, that means I get to call you kiddo. Deal. She giggled. The kind of pure, bubbling laugh that sounded like it hadn't been used in a long time. Deal. And just like that, everything changed. For the next few hours, they were a family. David helped both kids fly the kite, laughing as the wind pulled it high into the sky. When Lily tripped on the grass, he picked her up without hesitation. When her shoelaces came undone, he tied them carefully. Double, knotted just like a real dad would. They shared ice cream, sat under a tree, and talked about silly things. School clouds that looked like animals and how ice cream should be its own food group. At one point, Lily slipped her hand into his. It was small, warm, and hesitant, but she didn't let go. Neither did he. David noticed the way she smiled every time he called her sweetheart, the way her eyes shone when he laughed. For her, this wasn't just pretend, it was everything. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky in orange and pink, the park slowly emptied. The laughter faded. Families went home. Ethan rested his head against David's shoulder, sleepy but content. Lily sat quietly beside them, holding the wilted daisy in her lap. Did you have fun today? David asked softly. Lily smiled faintly. It was the best day ever. I'm glad, David said. A silence stretched between them, gentle, unhurried. Then Lily looked down and asked the question that broke his heart. When you go home, will you still be my daddy? David inhaled sharply. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her the world. But he couldn't. Life wasn't fair that way. He swallowed hard. You know, Lily, even if I'm not around, you can remember today. You can remember that someone cared. And whenever you feel alone, you can close your eyes and know your pretend dad still believes in you. Lily blinked back tears. Really, he said, smiling through the ache in his chest. She threw her arms around his neck, hugging him tight. Tighter than he thought such small arms could. Thank you, Daddy. 2 words. But they carried the weight of a lifetime. Later, when her mother arrived, Lily ran to her, smiling brighter than she had in months. Her mother thanked David, unaware of what had just happened. Unaware that for one brief afternoon, her daughter's heart had found a missing piece. When they left, David sat on the bench, silent. The park was nearly empty now. The first stars blinked faintly in the dusky sky. Ethan climbed onto his lap. Dad, are you okay? David nodded, though his eyes glistened. Yeah, buddy, just thinking. About the girl? Ethan asked. David smiled faintly. Yeah, about the girl. She was nice, Ethan said. Maybe she can play with us again. David ruffled his son's hair gently. Maybe, he whispered. But deep down, he knew that wasn't the point. Some people come into your life for a heartbeat, but they leave a mark that lasts forever. For David, that day was more than kindness. It was a reminder that love doesn't always come from blood. Sometimes it's born in small, quiet moments. In showing up, in saying yes when you could have said no. Weeks passed. One evening, David and Ethan returned to the park. The same bench, the same trees, the same gentle hum of laughter. But Lily wasn't there. The bench was empty except for a single dried daisy resting on the wood. The petals were withered but still beautiful. David picked it up carefully, a small smile tugging at his lips. He whispered, "Thank you, kiddo." Because sometimes the smallest hearts teach us the biggest lessons. They remind us that being a father isn't about sharing a name or a home. It's about presence. It's about kindness and choosing love even when there's nothing to gain. That day, when a little girl gathered all her courage and asked, "Sir, could you pretend to be my daddy, just for one day?" A man said yes. And for both of them, that one small yes became something real, something unforgettable. And though life moved on, neither of them ever truly forgot. The day love showed up in the simplest, purest form imaginable.